Hello and welcome to the Handed Down podcast and our first ever interview episode. I'm joined today by singer, songwriter and multi-instrumentalist Lynne Morley. Welcome to the podcast, Lynne.
Hello, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you on. And we've just heard you in action with your band. Tell us a bit more about your musical journey. So what led you to become a musician?
I guess I was surrounded by musically minded people from quite an early age. My dad and I were always singing in the home and in car journeys, and I had some really good music teachers at primary school. There was a battered old guitar in the house, but it never got played, and I assumed only grown-ups played the guitar. But then my cousin got a guitar for her birthday, and my interest was somewhat piqued, and we both started learning chords. I joined the school guitar club back home in Dorset and discovered classical guitar, had private lessons, and eventually went to music college. And during this time, my dad also had joined a barbershop chorus, and I was absolutely fascinated by the idea of being able to sing harmonies without instrumental backing. I thought that was really cool. I'd always had an ear for harmony, I guess, and I've always wanted to sing the descant or the alto rather than the tune. And in barbershop, I wanted to be the lady bass singer, but my voice wasn't quite low enough for that, so I compromised and did the one-note wonder baritone part, which I was, and I still do the one-note wonder. I'm not ashamed to do that. I love it. It's brilliant.
It's really interesting, isn't it? How music often starts in the family, doesn't it?
Yes.
If you've got music around you, I think you get curious as a kid, don't you? And you think, what's this all about? Can I have a go?
Yeah, well, I thought only grown-ups played the guitar because I used to think, oh, I'm not Mary Hopkin yet. When I get older, but I wonder if Mary Hopkin would teach me to play the guitar. That's what I thought when I was about 5 years old.
Oh, that's adorable. But you're in a band now, aren't you? Columbines.
Yes, I am.
Tell us about that.
Yes, we are an a cappella trio. We do sort of folk, traditional and Americana. I play guitar and bouzouki in this particular combo. We have another guitarist that plays rhythm. She usually plays a semi-acoustic, but sometimes she'll get her Gretsch out and give us a bit of heavy stuff. And we have a cellist who also plays the tin whistle.
So, that's a great combination.
I know. Not at the same time, of course. That might be pushing it too hard. But we sing a lot of a cappella stuff like "Bring Me Little Water Sylvie." We play self-arranged covers. We do very off the wall arrangements of things. People expect one song and we suddenly come out with another. And of course we all write our own songs, and we perform a mixture of self-arranged covers and own compositions, really.
I mean, I've heard you do your song Beowulf. It's quite an epic.
Yeah.
It's tell us about that.
Well, that was inspired. We were in the Columbines. Actually, were invited. Well, no, we weren't invited. There, where I live in Suffolk now, there's a Beowulf. We're very, very near Sutton Hoo, and there is a Beowulf festival every year. And one year there was a fundraiser, and there was a competition was launched to write a song inspired by the Beowulf legend or anything to do with Sutton Hoo. And the prize was, I think one of the main prizes was a recording session somewhere, but the runners up got to play on the boat, by the tide mill in Woodbridge. Amazing. So I thought, I've got to go with that one. So I entered the competition. I wrote Beowulf, and originally as a solo version, and then one of the organisers came up to me and said, "I know you. You're in that Columbines trio, aren't you?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "We've got to have you. How do you like how do you fancy playing on the boat?" I thought, "Absolutely. That's what I came for."
Wow, what an amazing thing to do.
So I completely rearranged Beowulf from the solo version to got some quick harmonies in, and I wrote a little cello section. The original version, Dorothy had to tune up her cello by a semitone because it just didn't work. Which cellos don't like having that sort of thing done to them. So I have since put the key up a little bit. Yeah. But as we haven't got together for a long time because of the COVID, that's a new thing. So I've played it on the folk circuit as well with Neil, my husband, who's also a cellist. Warriors cross the bay, fearsome dragons for to slay. Mighty leaders standing tall, strongest and bravest of all. Beowulf, Beowulf, our battle cry, I shall gain glory or die.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute epic, and I have to say, a live version of it is just such a treat. But let's talk about traditional songs. How did you get interested in traditional songs, and what do they mean to you?
Well, I suppose it's the harmony thing, really. I've always been fascinated by a cappella singing, solo singing, whatever the genre, and I always seem to gravitate to traditional and folk. I don't know why. I'm classically trained, but even the music I prefer classically, I like Palestrina, I like the early stuff, the medievals, because it sounds like folk music. So I think there's something deep in my psyche that it could be growing up in Dorset. I don't know. That's what I'm always drawn to. And of course, Steel Eye is Steel Eye Span are my absolute favourites because they sort of cross over between hard rock and a bit of traditional and bit of folk and back into a bit of classical. Just my sort of thing, really.
Yeah, they're that great combination, aren't they? And I'm really interested in what you say about the connection between folk and early music, because I'm a big fan of both as well. And I wonder, do you think it's to do with the modal nature of it?
Yes. Oh, yes. The modes. Yes. Yes. The Dorian mode is my favourite. That's the "What shall we do with the drunken sailor?"
Oh yeah.
Song. Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm really into Mixolydian at the moment. Gosh, this is getting really geeky, isn't it?
I know it is. I know. Don't get me started on modes. And of course, being a guitarist, the flamenco one, that's Phrygian. I'm a Phrygian one.
I think we should have a special episode just about modes.
We should, yes.
But let's talk about the song you brought along today. It's an absolute classic, isn't it? Tell us about your song.
Well, John Barleycorn. In fact, I learnt two versions of this at school. The first one was when I was at primary school. Mr. Morgan, our very, very good music. I was in his class, and he was a very good pianist and organist, and he was very keen to get choirs going. And we used to work on the Oxford Book of Folk Songs, and we'd learn High Germany, and John Barleycorn was another one. It sounded very much like a Sacred Heart hymn, the way it was arranged. And then a few years later, I went up to middle school, and we had a new teacher come in who's replacing our head of music on his year sabbatical. Also a great musician as well, but Sue Braunton had a slightly different approach. She played the piano and she took choir, but she didn't like to do both at the same time because she liked to get in front of the choir and teach them their harmonies by rote. And even at middle school, from the age of 9 to 13, we would do harmonies. And it was just the thing. Nobody blinked, nobody batted an eyelid.
Yeah.
So she taught us this John Barleycorn. I thought, yes, please, miss, can I do the harmony part? Even then, I wanted to do the low bit. I wanted to be the lady bass.
Did she let you do that?
Oh, yes, she did. She certainly did, because a lot of the children wanted to sing the high notes, because that's how they taught. But I always did the low bit.
It's really interesting what you say about the difference between the more classically arranged folk songs and the traditional versions. I had a similar experience. We used to learn folk songs at school with the piano, and they seem to have really nothing to do with the sort of folk songs that I was learning at home. It was almost like a completely different genre of music.
Exactly, yes. And I think, and when I heard this song, I got it straight away. Yeah. I thought, oh, I know what this story's about. You can't fool me. It's not about a person at all. It's about harvesting and sowing and sowing your seeds. It's not a person. I'm not worried about that. But I've since read up on it, and of course, in some cultures, I think in paganism, there's this idea of the god of harvest. Having to go through this humiliating ritual of being dug under the ground and dug up again and cut off and put into a grinder in order to feed humanity. And I think there's some kind of ritual where they apologise to the god, or I think the god of living, or the god of reliving. And I also read that Robert Burns kind of turned this into a Christian idea, a bit like the crucifixion. And I think his version is the only thing that refers to an uprising and making John Barleycorn into a saviour.
Yeah, when I was reading up about it, everyone seems to think it's like a really, really old song, but
yes,
no one can prove it.
No, I mean, there's some historians say he might be derived from the early pagan Norse deities such as Kvasir or Mimir, and is associated with Beowulf from Anglo-Saxon paganism. There we go, Beowulf again.
Everything leads back to Beowulf.
It does. I mean, I've lived now living in East Anglia. Of course, I come across the Beowulf rituals all the time, and being in Dorset, I always thought John Barleycorn was a Dorset song, but then you would. But nobody knows where it came from. It could be English, it could be Scottish, it could be Irish. Yeah. And it's one of those songs that circulates.
Yeah, and as you say, the themes are incredibly old, aren't they?
Oh, yes.
I mean, there's the paganism link, there's the kind of the Christianity link where you have to die to be reborn.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems to tap into this really old narrative, doesn't it, of the turning of the year and death and rebirth and drinking. It's a drinking song.
It is a drinking song. Can't mend your kettles and pots without a little of barleycorn.
Quite right.
You can't, and of course you can't chase the fox. Not very politically correct these days, but I was a horse rider as a child as well. So although we didn't go on hunts or anything, I sort of was aware of the background.
Yeah, there's always been a bit of magic in it for me, especially the version that you've brought along. It's a version I learnt it from a Mike Waterson recording, and it's definitely it's definitely not the cleaned up polite version.
Definitely
not the version that you'd put in a book.
Well, it was from the Penguin Book of English Folk Songs originally. I'm not quite sure whether this was arranged by the teacher or whether it was in there originally. But it's to say I went to St Michael's and All Angels Church of England middle school. Yeah. We had quite a lot of pagan influences in our music, I have to say.
Well, it's hard to avoid if you're going into folk song, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
So you talked a bit about how you came to learn the song. Anything else that you want to say about your relationship to the song?
All I can say is it's whenever anybody says sing a traditional song, that's the first thing I gravitate to, probably because I learnt it at such a young age. Yeah. And it's just the style that I can really get into. And as I say, I've heard various different versions of it, and thinking, "Oh, that's interesting," but that's not the version I know. It all varies. You never hear the same combination of notes twice.
You never do you? I've got this theory that everyone's got their own version of John Barleycorn that they kind of grasped onto at an early age.
And I think also the musical brain does funny things. You'll hear a tune, and then you'll sing it back, not quite the same way that it was actually sung, but the way your brain heard it. Yeah. Then the next person will hear it, and their brain does something else. Even in songs I've written, I've sung it to somebody, and their brain's interpreted in a different way, and the melody comes out different. I think, okay, all right, we can go with that. It's never set in stone, and that's the way it should be. You never get the same performance twice, and I bet I'll never ever do the song again like I did on the recording. No. It's just I sometimes pause, I sometimes don't, and the words will come out differently.
It's a living thing, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. That's music.
It is. And we had a bit of a funny exchange about your accent in this recording, didn't we? Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Oh, yes. Well, I don't know, but whenever I sing John Barleycorn, I always gravitate to Dorset. I think, and we didn't particularly sing it in a very local accent when I was at school, as far as I remember. But I've grown up in Dorset. I was born in Nottingham. I've lived in Leeds for a couple of years. I've lived in Ipswich for I don't know how long, and I've lived in London. But whenever I sing a folk song like John Barleycorn, the Dorset comes out.
I think it sounds great.
Yeah, it just works the way it's barleycorn.
Oh, well, it did make me laugh because, as I say, I got my version from a Mike Waterson recording, and we're both from Hull, so the Hull accent is strong in my version, but I do think that the Dorset accent sounds a lot more authentic and rustic.
Oh, yes. I think so.
I mean, in a Hull accent, I probably should be singing about fishing or sailing or something.
Oh, yes. But then I might slip into Irish if I start singing about fishing and sailing.
It's funny, isn't it?
You never know.
But I'll tell you what, it's such an antidote to this kind of mid-Atlantic accent you get in a lot of popular music at the moment.
Oh yes, yeah, and also the same in barbershop. Barbershop, of course, came across from America. And was actually, no, it wasn't. It started off in England and it went over to America and was forgotten about over here. Then they brought it back. But rather than saying dance or dance, it's dance.
Yeah.
Of course, the other thing I taught, as soon as I learnt John Barleycorn, I went to my dad and said, "Oh, do you want to learn a 2-part harmony song?" So we started singing it together. So in a way, John Barleycorn, it's handed up rather than handed down.
That's fantastic. What did your dad make of it?
Oh, he loved it. Of course, I always had arguments with him saying, "Don't pause after every single line." Interpretations. Don't just do it automatically. Think about what you're doing. I'm nowhere near as strict with my guitar pupils.
So, final verdict then on John Barleycorn. There's so many theories about where it's come from. What's your best theory?
I like the idea of the sort of Norse pagan thing, that it's very, very, very ancient. The idea of birth, death, rebirth, saving lives. I think that's my favourite theory.
I think it's a great one as well, because we'll never know. I think it's as plausible as anything else. So
I think so.
I think we'll stick with that one.
Yep, it's pagan. It's well, yes. Since I've been sort of got into the Beowulf thing, I think I would go with would go with that version or that that origin.
Excellent. And the version that you sing, it sounds very old, doesn't it?
I've wanted to do the 2-part version because that's the one that I most identify with. I could have sung it just straight a cappella unaccompanied, but that wouldn't be the same thing for me. So I recorded it on GarageBand, and just kept it very, very simple. No bells and whistles, very minimal production, just as if it was a live recording. But I sang with myself.
Oh, it is great. And, if it is that old, that's how people would have sung it for thousands of years, maybe.
Yep. They might not have recorded it, but
Well, no.
they might not have had the technology.
No. Oh, what a shame, isn't it? All those songs lost because we didn't have the technology.
I know.
So we're coming towards the end. Have you got anything that you'd like to plug? Any recordings that people might be able to get hold of? Any gigs coming up? Any contacts for your band?
Well, at the moment we've got no gigs at all at the moment because we haven't been able to meet because of this lockdown situation. But we have an EP out that just five of our best songs. And we did have a website, but that's been suspended at the moment. But if anybody's interested in buying the CD, of which you will have heard clips, they can contact us at columbinesmusic@gmail.com, and we can send all the details from there.
That's brilliant. And we'll put that in the show notes as well so that people have got that. Great. Well, thank you so much, Lynne.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been brilliant.
It has been absolutely brilliant to talk to you, Lynne. And that's it. We're coming to the end of the show now. Thank you very much for listening and supporting the show. If you liked it, tell your friends. We're going to be back next month with a bumper episode about a very well-travelled song. And we'll also have a spooky Halloween special with another special guest. But for now, a very big thank you to today's special guest, Lynne Morley, who's going to play us out with her very own John Barleycorn.
There was 3 men come out of the west, their fortunes for to try. And these 3 men made a solemn vow, John Barleycorn should die. They ploughed, they sowed, they harrowed him in throat-clots upon his head. And these 3 men made a solemn vow, John Barleycorn was dead. Then they let him lie for a very long time, till the rain from heaven did fall. And little Sir John sprang up his head, and so amazed them all. They let him stand till midsummer, till he looked both pale and wan. And little Sir John, he growed a long beard, and so became a man. Then they hired men with scythes so sharp to chop him off at the knee. They rode him and tied him around the waist and served him barbarously. They hired men with sharp pitchforks that pierced him to the heart. And the lottery served him worst of all, for he bound him to the cart. They wheeled him around and around the field till they came to a great big barn. And there they made a solemn mow of poor John Barleycorn. They hired men with crabtree sticks to part him skin from bone. And the miller, he served him worst of all, for he ground him between 2 stones. Here's little Sir John in the nut brown bowl and brandy in a glass. And little Sir John in the nut brown bowl proved the stronger man at last. For the huntsman, he can't hunt the fox, nor so loudly blow his horn. And the tinker, he can't mend his kettles and pots without a little of barleycorn.